Good afternoon. I'm Michael Adams, and it's my honor to welcome you to SAGE, the home and heart of so many of our city's LGBTQ elders, on this historic day for gender, non-binary, and transgender people. We are particularly honored to be hosting Mayor Bill de Blasio, First Lady Chirlane McCray, Speaker Corey Johnson, and so many other of elected officials, leaders, and each and every one of you who've been such strong allies for our community's elder pioneers. It is especially fitting with this bill signing ceremony is happening here at this time as SAGE celebrates its 40th anniversary in 2018, and we gear up for Stonewall 50 in 2019. After all, the history that we celebrate this year and next was made by our elders, the people who struggled through decade after decade of violence and witch hunts and government-sponsored discrimination and bigotry of every stripe to pave the way for the progress and equality that we enjoy today. This is also an historic time because in 2019, SAGE and our partners will be opening New York City and New York State's first two affordable senior housing developments that are specifically designed with LGBTQ-friendly wraparound services. The Ingersoll development in Fort Greene and Brooklyn will open in June and will be the largest of its kind in the country, and the Crotona development in the Tremont neighborhood in the Bronx will open soon after. And it's only fitting that these residential communities for our elders are part of Mayor de Blasio's affordable housing plan and have garnered such strong support from the City Council. So I want to personally thank the Mayor and Speaker Johnson for their unwavering support for these critically important projects. Thank you. Among the many older people who SAGE serves, those who are gender non-binary and transgender face some of the most serious challenges as they age. They have also been some of our fiercest activists and leaders from the days of the Stonewall Uprising until today. It is in their name and their honor that SAGE has been proud to be a strong supporter of the historic bill that will be signed into law here today. It is now my pleasure to introduce Tanya Azapanza Johnson-Walker. Tanya is co-founder of the New York Transgender Advocacy Group, has been a board member for the Audre Lorde Project, and has been deeply involved in many other community organizations, and is a leader of the Transgender Women's Rights Group here at the Edie Windsor Sage Center. Please welcome Tanya.
Hi. Hi, everybody. Hi. Louder. Hi, everybody. Hi. Thank you. Hi, I'm Tanya Azapanza Johnson-Walker. My pronouns are she and her. I'm 55 years old, and I'm from Staten Island, but I currently live in Harlem. I am the co-founder of the New York Transgender Advocacy Group, NYTAG, and this is a very important and historic moment that will bring dignity to transgender, gender nonconforming, and non-binary New Yorkers. We will no longer need to go to the doctor to get a piece of paper that validates our own identity. There are many fine doctors, but some may not understand or may not want to understand your gender identity. That is an unnecessary and potentially hurtful extra step to live your true self. Having a document that shows a wrong identity is scary and stressful. Imagine having to out yourself over and over and over again to people you don't even know. That it causes lots and lots of anxiety. When I was at the College of Staten Island, I had to write my name and my gender pronouns down on a piece of paper and hand it to the professor at the beginning of the semester. And I would sit at the back of the class by the door because I was afraid he was going to call my birth name and gender. So I think this is excellent. This change may seem small, but this is monumental for so many people. And I am so glad new generations will not have to endure such indignities. I am proud of New York City for protecting and advancing LGBTQ rights, and deeply grateful to all the people that have advocated for the change, and to Mayor de Blasio and Speaker Johnson for creating this law. It is now my honor to introduce you to the Mayor of New York City, Mayor de Blasio, Bill de Blasio. Thank you.
Tanya, thank you. I think it's so important for people to hear what this means. And for people to understand this is about New Yorkers getting to be who they are, getting to live in peace, getting to fulfill their destiny as they see it. And Tanya, thank you for all of your leadership. Let's give her a round of applause. I want to thank everyone for being here. Special thank you to everyone at SAGE, 40th anniversary year for SAGE. Thank you for all you've done. Michael Adams, thank you for your leadership. Want to thank two members of my administration who are with us. One is standing behind, is the chair of the Human Rights Commission of New York City, Carmelyn Malalas. Thank you for your good work. The other is seated. She is our acting health commissioner, but even the health commissioner can have a back problem. So, Dr. Oxiris Barbeau, thank you for all of your leadership. You really need to see a doctor about that. Okay, I have some questions, everybody. Does everyone have the right to their own identity? Sorry, I'm going to borrow from you. I can't hear you. Does everyone have a right to their own identity? Yes! Does everyone have a right to be themselves? Yes! Should everyone be able to tell their government who they are and not the other way around? Yes! That's why this is so important. You've answered all the questions. Look, I want to just put this in some quick perspective. You know, as a country, we have something that actually makes us unique. We have a founding document that talks about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. How can someone have happiness if they cannot be who they are? Think about it. How can someone be free and have liberty if they're not recognized for who they see themselves to be? Right now, let's be clear, even though that's in our founding document, federal government does not allow any form of ID that I've ever heard of, at least, certainly not a passport, to recognize the whole range of identity. And our state government doesn't either. And so it's up to New York City and it's up to localities all over this country to answer this, to give people a right they should have. Because we believe in self-determination, don't we? Isn't that what we're all about? Self-determination, self-expression. And there is a lot of talk about freedom. This is an essential example of freedom. If you're denied the right to express yourself, you don't have freedom. If you have to sit by the door of the classroom worried that someone's going to typify you the wrong way and deny your identity, you don't have freedom. You don't feel free. You can't feel free if you're not recognized for who you are. So I think a lot of people will watch the coverage of today's bill signing, and some will immediately feel connected to this and understand it and appreciate it. Others will have some real questions. I say to them, think in terms of freedom. I don't know anyone who doesn't want freedom. Everyone has their own experience, but I think pretty universally, people want freedom. Imagine if you were told you had to be something you did not consider yourself to be. How would that feel? Imagine there was literally no space given for your own identity as you saw it. That's been the reality for too many New Yorkers, too many Americans. It doesn't have to be that way. So if anyone hears the word freedom, regardless of their ideology or their partisan affiliation, if they hear the word freedom and they like the sound of freedom, here's just another powerful example of actually respecting that right to freedom in everyone. And if we don't respect that right, then what happens? People go unseen. They go unacknowledged. They go disrespected, disregarded. They are treated like they don't belong. And one thing that New York City is really good at is being a place for everyone. One of the things we are renowned for all over the world is a place where everyone can belong. We're proud of that. It's why we are the greatest city in the world. Today we take another step towards being our true selves as New Yorkers and embracing everyone. And for so many folks who for so many years had to deal with documents that did not reflect their reality, I can only begin to imagine what that challenge was like, what that pain was like. We want to make that right today. We want to make sure that people are not dependent on the subjective judgment of anybody else, including a doctor. And I agree entirely, respect the medical profession greatly. But doctors come with their own perspectives. This is something that's not about what an individual doctor thinks. It's about what someone feels about themselves and knows about themselves. That's why Intro 954 is so important. This legislation is very clear. It says you can identify yourself as a male, female, or with an X on a New York City birth certificate. It's straightforward about saying each person defines that for themselves. And in this city, which has been the wellspring of the movement for equality for so long, the home of Stonewall and the modern LGBTQ movement, it is fitting that we lead the way here again. The 50th anniversary of Stonewall nears, as you heard, and that's something that makes us all very proud, very hopeful. Even when we go through days like we have in this country just the last few days, it could be painful, it could be discouraging. We should never be discouraged, because we only have to think back a half century ago when brave people stood up. They didn't know they were making history. They didn't know what they did in those days would reach us all the way to today. We have to have that same courage, that willingness to fight through every struggle and know it will help those farther down the road. And this is an important moment. And I want to say to anyone who feels they have been misunderstood or ignored or mistreated because of their choice of their own identity, a simple message: you be you, live your truth, and know that New York City will have your back. Before I call up some other distinguished individuals who've all been part of bringing this day together, just a few words in Spanish. Estoy firmando una ley que otorga a todos los neoyorquinos el derecho de definir su propio género en sus actas de nacimiento. Nueva York es la cuna del movimiento de derechos LGBT. Y al dar este paso, repetimos: sé tú mismo, Vive tu verdad. Tu ciudad está contigo. Now, the person who I like to introduce the most. And she has fought for freedom, for people to define themselves and be respected for themselves, literally her whole adult life. And I could say, with a position of absolute, perfect objectivity, we could have no greater First Lady than Chirlane McCray.
Thank you, Bill. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
What an exciting day this is. Woo! I came to New York City in July of 1977. There was no gay community center. There was no Sage. It was not even a dream. And today, I would never, ever have imagined, just never, that we would get to this point. So for those of you who think that we haven't had any change in the last 40, 50 years, well, guess what? I'm here to say it is coming. It may not be fast enough, but it's coming. And I want to thank everyone who fought so hard, so long to make this moment possible. A special thank you to all the transgender and gender nonconforming, non-binary leaders and activists who are here today. This would not be happening without all of you. And I am so proud to stand with you as New York City takes this major step forward. Of course, the truth is long overdue. Our city has always been home to people who do not identify as the gender listed on their birth certificates. We know that's true. There have always been New Yorkers who cannot check a box that says male or female. But government has been painfully slow to see these New Yorkers, to validate their reality. And the frustration and emotional distress that comes with going unseen and being ignored is very real and dangerous. That's why today matters. And no one could explain that better than Tanya already has. Thank you, Tanya. Right? So today we're sending a clear message to you and to every transgender and gender non-binary New Yorker. We see you. We hear you. We are with you. A birth certificate is so much more than a piece of paper. It is the very first acknowledgement of who people are. What's the first question that people ask when you get born? Right? What's the question? Y'all can answer. Is it a boy? Is it a girl? Right? That's the very first question. From starting a job to finding a home to getting a passport, it is an essential tool for navigating society with credibility. And most importantly, with respect. There's nothing more basic than that. Now, for the very first time, every New Yorker will be able to get a birth certificate that reflects and affirms their lived reality and helps them go through life with the same dignity that is afforded everyone else. And we will not stop there. We will strive to extend that dignity to every aspect of life. We will stand strong against any attempt to deny anyone who identifies as part of the LGBT community the safety and the respect that they deserve as humans. We are all humans, right? Yeah. We're all humans? Humans? It's better. Well, with the NYC Unity Project, we will partner with you to continue building a better future for our city's LGBTQ community, young people, and make New York City the most LGBTQ affirming place in the world. I mean, why not here, right? We started it all. So thank you all again. I'm so proud to be standing here with you all today, and onward.
Now, the way you get change, particularly when it involves passing legislation as important as this, it takes often two ingredients. It takes people to speak up and organize in the community, activists and voices of conscience, and people who educate others and mobilize others. So I just want to commend everyone standing here, everyone out there, and I want you all to applaud each other for all you did to get us to this day. Well, and then it takes legislative leadership that's listening to all those voices. And the good news with Corey Johnson is he's not only listening, he feels it, he cares, and he really wants to do something about it. This is what I've seen on issue after issue. A lot of urgency to Corey Johnson, and I commend him for that. So both pieces of the equation came together here. The voices of the community and a leader ready to act on the needs of the community and to guide the City Council to this action. So my great pleasure to introduce Speaker Corey Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for that very kind introduction and for very soon signing this bill into law. I want to thank the First Lady for her amazing, relentless efforts in advocating for LGBT people, vulnerable and marginalized people, and creating the Unity Project, which is so important. We stood together just a few months ago announcing a new resource the city was going to put forward for LGBT young people in New York City, and today is an extension of that work. So I want to thank you, Charlene, for everything that you've done. I want to thank, as the mayor did, the amazing activists and advocates are really the ones who deserve the kudos today. It was so moving to hear Tanya and to be with her today. I want to thank Carrie and Ethan for co-chairing the advisory committee for years, who have been working on this issue to make it possible. And I have long prepared remarks, which I'm not going to use, because I think the mayor and Tanya and the First Lady and Michael have really said it all. I just want to give a little context. I think it's important to have some context how we got to this place today. When I was elected to the council in 2013, I took office in 2014. I had the honor and privilege of being appointed chair of the health committee in the city council. And I wanted to be chair of the health committee because I studied the history and knew about ACT UP and Queer Nation and the activist groups that really made it possible for an openly gay, openly HIV positive man at 31 years old to run for council and to have the opportunity to lead a healthy and successful life. And so that's why I wanted to chair that committee in the spirit of those activists who are actually protesting the city council for not doing enough not that many years earlier. And when I became chair of the health committee, one of the first things I asked my good friend Carrie Davis was, did we take care of that issue where trans people could get birth certificates that matched who they are? And she said, no, we haven't. And hopefully Carrie's not going to get upset with me for this. And I said to her, well, I want to do it. And she said, I want to do it too, but is it a good idea in the sense of, can we be set up for success? Are we going to be able to succeed and get this done? And I want to give credit to my predecessor, Speaker Mark Viverito, who immediately was supportive of that, and the mayor, who was immediately supportive of that when I came to them with the initial bill 4 years ago and said that I wanted to allow that to happen. And the bill was considered under the previous mayor, Mayor Bloomberg, in 2003, 2004, I believe, and it was brought to the Board of Health, and there was pushback, and there was opposition, and it was dropped. No one moved forward. And so 10 years later, when we brought it up, rightfully Carrie and other folks said, are we going to have the same level of opposition? And amazingly, no one came and testified against the bill. Not a single person, not one. And at the Board of Health, where Dr. Barbeau was first deputy commissioner at that time, no one came and testified against the bill. what we heard was stories of transgender New Yorkers and young people who talked about, as Tanya did, their own personal experience, and the way the First Lady just talked about how important it is to have this document, which is symbolic and unlocks so many things in our society every single day. And so in my first term in the council, I think I passed 23 bills into law. A lot. But this bill, this was the bill I was most proud of. This first bill that I did as chair of the Health Committee was the bill I was most proud of, because I recognize that as a white gay man, I have a level of privilege in the LGBT community that others aren't afforded. And to be in the position that I'm in, it is important for me to acknowledge that and to work to ensure that everyone in every community, but especially the LGBT community, people of color, transgender women of color, people with disabilities, older LGBT folks who went through very rough years, that they get the same level of dignity and care that I was able to get as a young gay man when I moved to the city. So I really want to thank all of the activists. I see my good friend Jean Mapas from the Ackerman Institute Gender and Family Project. I see Melissa Sklarz, who is a trailblazer, and many other friends here today. I want to thank you all for the work that you have done to get us to this point. We do this in the spirit and on the shoulders of Sylvia Rivera and Marsha P. Johnson and Audre Lorde and Michael Cowan and all of the folks that came before us and cleared the path and laid the trail to make this possible. Elections have consequences, and I don't mean that with my regard. I mean that at every level of government. And we had a mayor who was supportive. We have a first lady who has been championing these issues for years. We have a council that's been supportive. Everyone needs to get out and vote in 28 days. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Corey. One more speaker. As someone who has made history, they are the first non-binary actor ever cast in a major American TV series, the show Billions, on Showtime, which I think presents a very sympathetic vision of billionaires. You can also see them on Netflix's Orange is the New Black. Please welcome New York City's own Asia Kate Dillon.
Hi. I want to respectfully acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the occupied territory of the Lenape people. I also want to respectfully acknowledge the 21 trans people who have been murdered this year. According to GLAAD, 20 of them are trans women, 1 a trans masculine person, and all but 2 of them are trans people of color. This number does not include transgender people whose deaths were not reported due to misgendering in police reports, news stories, and sometimes by the victim's own family. The following list is certainly incomplete. Sierra Minaj Carter, London Moore, Shantae Tucker, Dejanay Stanton, Vontasia Bell, Sasha Garden, Keisha Wells, Catalina Christina James, Diamond Stevens, Antasha Divine Sherrington English, Gigi Pierce, Nino Fortson, Carla Patricia Flores Pavon, Sasha Wall, Amia Tyree, Felicia Mitchell, Zakaria Fry, Celine Walker, Tanya Harvey, Krista Lee Steele Knudslian, Vicky Gutierrez. May they all rest in peace and power. Victims of anti-transgender violence in the U.S. are overwhelmingly transgender women of color who live at the dangerous and often too deadly intersections of transphobia, racism, sexism, and criminalization, which often lead, excuse me, to high rates of poverty, unemployment, and homelessness. Transgender people in the U.S., especially transgender women of color, are impacted by fatal violence at a disproportionate rate. It's important to note that transgender people also face high rates of physical violence, intimate partner violence, and sexual violence, as well as daily microaggressions. Black trans lives matter. As it is essential to acknowledge and honor the trans, non-binary, and gender non-conforming lives lost at the hands of the state, hate, or sexual violence, it is also essential that we celebrate victories for the trans, non-binary, and gender non-conforming community. This bill is a victory for the transgender, non-binary, and gender non-conforming people, and an important step towards equality. On my birth certificate, next to the S for sex, there is an F for female. I was assigned female at birth. A person's assigned sex is used to determine their gender identity. Although I was assigned female at birth, I do not identify with the gender identity placed on top of people who are assigned female at birth. Although I have typically female biological sex characteristics, my gender identity is non-binary. I am not a man or a woman. I use they, them, their pronouns. We are all assigned a sex and therefore a gender identity and therefore a place in an invented hierarchy. According to the Indian Express in the US, quote, ethnographic research reveals that prior to the European dominance, there were absolutely no monolithic gender systems in place. The construction of two specific gender identities as non-interchangeable absolutes was in fact the invention of the Euro-Western society. The F on my birth certificate, assigned to me based on a quick glance at my external genitalia, marked me. The F marked me as she, her, miss, Ms., even ma'am. In a society socialized, all of us socialized, to use a person's body, specifically what is between a baby's legs at birth, to determine their gender identity. The F on my birth certificate marks me as someone more likely to be gendered in death. The ability to change that mark, to change that F to an X as a way of eschewing the binary systems of male and female and man and woman is an essential step towards the breaking down of binary ideological systems created in order to justify and uphold social, political, and economic oppression, systems which result ultimately, and this is a truth no one can escape, in the separation of us all, every one of us, from ourselves and our humanity. Changing the F to an X would not only be a validation of my reality, it would allow me to be seen as a human being first, a person whose body doesn't indicate anything other than it's my body. I am very proud to be here today as New York City takes the important step of signing this bill into law, setting the trend for statewide and federal recognition. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So powerful. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Well, people have worked very hard for this day, struggled hard for this day, waited a long time. So I have a question for everyone. Is it time to sign this bill? Yes! What's with the crowd? Let's try again. Is it time to sign this bill? Yes! All right. Now I'm convinced.
Sit down, please.
Down, please.
Down, please. Stills, down, please.
Are the still photographers being sensitive?
Now take a picture of us. Oh, you come in the picture too.